You ever come home and just know something's off? That was me, standing on the gravel drive of my lakeside cabin, suitcase in one hand, coffee in the other, heart doing a slow spin in my chest. The early morning sun filtered through the trees, painting golden streaks on the wood-paneled exterior of the house my grandfather built with his own hands. It should have felt like peace. Instead, I noticed the tire marks. Deep, fresh, way too many for a place that's supposed to be empty. I hadn't planned to be home for another 3 days. The trip out west had been my long overdue escape, a mix of hiking, no cell service, and guiltless solitude. I left my property locked, cameras activated, and the Wi-Fi thermostat set to away. So when I decided to cut the trip short thanks to a flash storm warning and a broken hiking boot, I didn't even think twice about coming back early. But standing there now, staring at the tire tracks in the gravel, I knew something was wrong. Then I saw the sign. A small white placard stuck crookedly into the flower bed, Lakeside Bliss Retreat, private event today. My mouth dried instantly. No. No, no, no. I dropped my suitcase and jogged around to the back deck. And that's when I saw the patio furniture rearranged. My firewood stack had been turned into a decorative backdrop. The canoe I stored beneath the porch was now mounted upright next to a love is in the air wooden sign. But the worst part? A woman in a business blazer with a clipboard and a Bluetooth headset was pointing out spots around the yard to a delivery guy with a box of champagne flutes. She saw me and smiled. "Are you the groundskeeper?" she asked, checking her clipboard. "You're late. The photographer arrives at 10. I didn't answer. I just walked straight to the front door. Unlocked. When I stepped inside, I stopped cold. The cabin was immaculate, but not the way I left it. Someone had staged it. Candles on the mantel. Throw pillows with phrases like "sip happens in bride tribe." My coffee table had been pushed aside to make space for a white shag rug and a stack of what looked like wedding magazines. There was even a faint trace of vanilla and sandalwood in the air, like a luxury rental's signature scent. And then, from the kitchen, I heard it. The unmistakable click of a phone camera. I stepped in. And there she was. Karen Whitmore, the HOA president. Coral sweater draped over her shoulders like she'd just walked out of a yacht club brochure, hair pinned into that same rigid helmet she always wore for the monthly beautification patrol. She was standing in my kitchen, photographing my espresso machine. I didn't say a word. She jumped, startled by my presence, and gave a tight smile. "Oh. You're back early." I didn't move. "Karen. What are you doing in my home?" She lowered her phone, like she was only just realizing how bad this looked. "Well, there was a bit of a mix-up." "A mix-up? I thought you'd be gone for another week." "You usually are." So when the bride's Airbnb fell through, well, I saw an opportunity to help the community and avoid disappointment. My jaw worked, but no words came. She went on, like this was all completely rational. "It's not a big deal. Just one weekend. They're paying guests. It's a curated listing. I've even had a professional photographer do a feature on the cabin for luxlodgings.com. It's great exposure. Oh, and I had to remove a few of your rustic touches. Hope that's all right." I snapped. "You broke into my home and listed it online?" Karen tilted her head, expression morphing into her trademark blend of condescension and faux sweetness. "Don't be dramatic. I had a key. The HOA keeps one on file in case of emergencies." "There was no emergency." "There is now," she replied. "You're compromising an event that involves multiple guests, permits, and press coverage. You really want to be the guy who ruins a bride's special day?" I turned and marched outside, pulling out my phone. No service. Of course. Still on cabin Wi-Fi, thankfully. I opened my security app. And that's when I saw the live stream. She was streaming my property. A walkthrough tour uploaded 3 days ago. "Hidden gem wedding venue, book now," it said, over a thumbnail of my dock dressed in white tulle and fairy lights. I felt the anger crystallize into something sharp. I dialed 911. And as I stepped back inside to confront Karen, she beat me to the punch. She had already called. Because when the first squad car rolled up and the officers stepped out, Karen pointed at me and said, "That's him. The trespasser. He broke in while I was hosting guests. I don't feel safe. Sir, step outside." That's what the officer said. Calm, firm, voice like he was just waiting for me to make a sudden move. I raised my hands slowly, more out of disbelief than fear. "This is my house," I said. "I live here." That woman, I pointed at Karen, who was now dabbing fake tears from her eyes with a tissue she probably kept pre-wrinkled for just this kind of performance, broke in. Without permission. Karen gasped like I'd slapped her. "That's a lie. He's not even the owner. I've been managing this property for months. Check the listing. Look at the reviews." "Reviews?" I nearly laughed. My jaw clenched instead. The officer motioned for me to step back, hand near his holster. "Let's just take this one step at a time, sir. I need some ID." I reached into my jacket pocket slowly and handed over my driver's license. "You're welcome to scan the address. It'll match. I've owned this place since 2018. My grandfather built it. His name's carved into the dock post." The officer glanced between my ID and the front of the cabin. "And you said she entered without your permission?" I nodded. "Broke in. Rearranged my furniture. Staged the place like it's a rental. And unless I'm hallucinating, there's a bridal party on the way." As if summoned by the universe's twisted sense of humor, a string of honks echoed up the gravel path. I turned just in time to see a white limo inching toward us, its windows rolled down, laughter and shrieks echoing through the trees. Then came the squeal. "Oh my GAWD, it's perfect." The door popped open and out spilled a crowd of women in matching satin robes, followed by a photographer with a camera the size of a toaster oven. One of them clutched a bouquet of fake lilies and looked around wide-eyed. "Karen! This is exactly what you described on the listing." Karen's lips curled into that tight, smug smile. "I told you it had character." The bride approached us, mid-20s, unnaturally tan, tiara perched atop a cascade of hair extensions. "Wait, who's he?" she asked, jabbing a finger in my direction. Karen didn't miss a beat. "A distant cousin of the owner's. He doesn't like weddings. Bit of a recluse. Ignore him." The officer turned to her. "Ma'am, I'm going to need your ID as well." Karen's jaw tightened. "Why?" "I called you. I'm the one who feels unsafe." He didn't budge. "ID, please." She fished it out of her overpriced purse and handed it over with a huff. He took a long look, then said, "And do you have documentation showing your right to be on this property?" Karen faltered. "Well, the HOA has a shared agreement." "No, we don't," I cut in. "This property is outside HOA jurisdiction. Always has been. I have the deed inside if you want to see it." Karen turned on me, eyes wide with fury. "You're seriously going to shut down a bride's wedding day? What kind of monster are you?" I raised an eyebrow. What kind of lunatic sells access to a home they don't own? The officer's radio squawked. He turned away to speak into it. Karen saw her moment. "Listen," she said, stepping toward the bride. "It's fine. Just head down to the dock. The bartender's already setting up. Give us a few minutes to clear things up." The bride hesitated, then shrugged. "As long as there's champagne, I don't care. My photographer only booked us for 2 hours." I followed the officer inside while Karen scurried after the bridal party like nothing was wrong. Once inside, I handed over my folder. Deed. Utility bills. Security cam screenshots of Karen entering the property with a key I never gave her. The officer whistled. "Okay. This is a mess. You're telling me." Then he said the words I'd been hoping for, "Let me call the station. We might need to open a case." Back outside, the situation was unraveling faster than Karen's smile. The DJ had arrived and was trying to hook up speakers to an extension cord running from my porch. One of the bridesmaids was spraying body glitter onto the dock rail. My kayak, was now propped upright like a photo booth backdrop. And Karen? She was sitting cross-legged on the deck, tapping furiously into her phone and muttering about bad reviews and influence campaigns. I walked up behind her. She turned, eyes flashing. "I will get you banned from this community. I'll call the mayor. The press. You have no idea how connected I am." I leaned in close. "Then you better call them quick. Because your party's about to be over." I stood at the edge of my own dock, watching a woman in stilettos try to walk across a cedar plank aisle runner like it was the runway at Paris Fashion Week. A champagne glass clinked somewhere near my fire pit. Laughter floated from the porch, where Karen had now assumed her usual position of authority, clipboard in hand, as if she was the general of some wedding army rather than the ringleader of a heist in pearls. And meanwhile, the cop who had arrived first was now joined by another unit. 2 officers. 4 cameras. 10 guests. 1 Karen. And me. The guy whose home had been hijacked like a Lakeside Airbnb. The second officer, a woman with a pragmatic, no-nonsense tone, asked me to walk her through the timeline again. I did. From the moment I left for my trip, to the surprise sign in my garden, to Karen's bridal fantasy now playing out like a live reality show in my backyard. Then I handed her my phone. The app showed the guest messages Karen had left for her own listing. Karen's username? LakeLady_weddings. Her profile photo was her standing by my canoe, smiling like it was a prop. She had 18 5-star reviews. Each one praising the cozy cottage vibes, stunning private views, and the host Karen's magical touch. The officer's eyebrows lifted. She's been doing this a while. Apparently. She radioed her partner. "Hey, John, yeah, we've got unauthorized subletting. Unauthorized entry. Looks like this might be a pattern." Meanwhile, across the property, Karen was posing with the bride in front of my canoe. She'd set up a faux arch out of birch twigs and dollar store fairy lights. The photographer snapped away while Bear, my 95-pound Newfoundland retriever, sat dutifully on the porch, watching them with the disapproving glare of a disappointed school principal. I decided to walk over. Karen spotted me mid-shot and immediately stepped between me and the photographer. "Don't ruin this," she hissed. "You'll only embarrass yourself." I looked at the bride. "Do you even know where you are?" She blinked. Karen said this was a lakeside event space. "It's not. It's my house. I live here. You're all trespassing." Her eyes widened. The photographer slowly lowered his camera. Karen clapped her hands. "Ignore him. He's having a mental health crisis. That's why we're having the wedding outside, to keep him calm." I took out my phone and showed the bride the listing. The price, $1, $200 per night. With a $500 decor coordination fee. She gasped. We paid in full. There were contracts. Receipts. "What is this?" Karen's smile froze. "It's part of the HOA's temporary hospitality initiative." "No," I cut in. "This cabin is private property. Not under HOA control. Karen's never had any right to list this place." The photographer took a cautious step back. "So, this isn't licensed?" I shook my head. "Not even a little." The bride turned to Karen, face flushing. "You told me this was your family's vacation home." Karen stammered. "I facilitated access through my network. I manage spaces. I curate experiences." "You're a scammer," I said, pointing to the growing crowd of people now unsure where to stand. And that's when the second officer stepped up. "Ma'am," she said to Karen, "you need to step aside." We're conducting an investigation into possible fraud and unlawful entry. Karen pulled out her phone. I demand a lawyer. This is harassment. Great, I said. Because I already called mine. Karen's eyes narrowed. You think you've won? This community loves me. I've given them years of service. Nobody cares about your little shack on the water. Funny, I replied. Because the news just might. I pulled up the message thread from earlier. My cousin, who freelances for a major lifestyle blog, had already replied. Give me 1 hour. This is gold. And then I heard the third police car pull up. Karen's face went pale. The bride turned to her and said quietly, We're leaving. No. Karen shrieked. You can't. This is my event. My moment. The bride turned and marched to the limo. The photographer followed. One by one, the guests trickled off the deck, down the gravel drive, past the shocked florist now trying to collect her tulip centerpieces without stepping on a dog bone. Karen stood alone now. A ransacked porch. A tulle-draped canoe. And my dog, Bear, lifting a leg on the champagne table. The first officer approached her. Ma'am, you're going to need to come with us. We'll sort this out down at the station. Karen spun on her heel, wild-eyed. You'll all regret this. I built this neighborhood. No, I said. You exploited it. And as they walked her toward the cruiser, clipboard clutched in one hand like a shield of righteousness, Karen screamed the one phrase I'll never forget. This was supposed to be my legacy. Karen's arrest was the kind of dramatic exit that usually only exists in sitcoms or court TV shows. One heel broke as she was escorted to the cruiser. Her clipboard slipped from her hand and fluttered into a puddle. The officers didn't bother picking it up. But what came next? That was where things got interesting. Because once Karen was gone, the real fallout began. See, I thought this was just a case of one HOA president losing her mind and trespassing on private property for personal gain. But the truth? It went deeper. Much deeper. It started with a knock on my door later that afternoon. I opened it to find Daniel Rourke, treasurer of the HOA board, standing on my porch with a sheepish smile and a tote bag full of pastries. The kind of peace offering you bring when you're worried your organization is about to be dismantled one screenshot at a time. Can we talk? He asked. I crossed my arms. You knew she was listing my place. He hesitated. I knew something wasn't right. But Karen's been, persuasive. And intimidating. She stole my property. Sold access to strangers. Put me and my dog at risk. He nodded quickly. And we want to make it right. I promise. But you need to know, this wasn't her first venue. I blinked. Excuse me? He pulled a folded spreadsheet from his bag. We ran a quiet review this morning. Karen's been hosting properties across 4 neighborhoods. Some of them weren't even in this zip code. We think she made close to 50 grand last year. Unreported. I stared at the paper. 4 addresses were underlined in red. All belonged to elderly residents. 3 were in nursing homes. 1 was deceased. She was using empty homes, I said, voice low. She had spare keys. Claimed she was maintaining them for the community. And nobody thought to question her? Daniel looked down. We did. But you've never seen Karen when someone questions her authority. She files anonymous complaints. Starts rumor chains. Threatens lawsuits. I snorted. I've seen enough. Daniel handed me the pastries. There's more. The board is holding an emergency vote tomorrow. We're removing her from the presidency. And we'd like you to attend. Share your story. I took the bag. Is there jelly filled? 4. Then I'll think about it. That night, I did a deep dive. Emails. HOA newsletters. Local property forums. Turns out, Karen had been building her little empire for years. Manipulating bylaws, rewriting meeting minutes, and twisting the concept of community into a personal business plan. She ran workshops, gave talks, even had a website. Karen's Keys, curated Lakeside experiences. It looked legitimate, professional, even had testimonials. But buried deep in the privacy policy was a goldmine, a clause stating she was acting as an independent community curator with the support of local HOA networks. That was her legal shield. And I had just cracked it wide open. The next morning, I showed up at the HOA meeting. Held in the community clubhouse, the room was packed. Word had gotten around. Fast. The folding chairs were filled with residents clutching iced coffees and curiosity. Some were still in yoga pants. Others wore polos and sun hats. Everyone looked anxious. Daniel stood at the front. "We've called this special session to address an abuse of authority," he began. "You've all seen the video clips, the news coverage, and you've read the police report. But today, we have someone here who can tell you what it was really like." He gestured to me. I stood, my palms sweaty but my voice steady. "I came home from a trip to find my property, my private home, listed online by someone I barely knew. She let strangers in. She moved my belongings. She staged my kitchen and sold access without my consent." Murmurs rippled through the room. She used the HOA's name as a license to manipulate people. She used keys meant for emergencies to turn homes into unauthorized rentals. And she made a profit off of it. I let that sink in. She trespassed. Lied. And when I called her out, she called the police. On me. Someone gasped. An older man in the back stood up. "She did the same thing to my sister's place last summer. I thought it was a fluke." Another woman raised her hand. "She told me I had to leave town for a week because of septic inspections. My house was booked that weekend on the same site." The stories poured in. Like a dam had cracked. The board held the vote then and there. It wasn't even close. Karen was ousted. Stripped of her title, her privileges, her clipboard. But that wasn't the end. Because just as I was about to leave, Daniel caught me by the door. "We found something else. You might want to see it." He pulled out a manila folder. Inside, a business license application in my name. Filed without my consent. Using my property address. Listing me as the owner-operator of a Lakeside rental company. She'd forged it. Months ago. The implication was clear. Karen wasn't just staging weddings. She was building an empire on my identity. The forged business license sat in my lap like a ticking bomb. Filed months ago. Signed with my name. Notarized, badly. Stamped by some third-party registry office across the county. Karen had built her entire scam not just on boldness, but on forging legal identities. And mine was first on her list. I stared at the document under the flickering fluorescent lights of my lawyer's office. Next to me sat Angie, my cousin and a civil rights attorney who specialized in property fraud. Her laptop hummed quietly while she reviewed documents with the speed of a courtroom chess master. She wasn't just trespassing, Angie said. She was preemptively protecting herself from liability by putting you on the hook. So if something went wrong, like a guest got injured, you'd be liable, Angie finished. Unless we take her down first. We filed a report the next day with the sheriff's department, criminal impersonation, document forgery, property fraud. The officer, a gruff man named Gibson, read through the papers and muttered, "We've been waiting for someone to drop the other shoe on this woman." Apparently, Karen's name had shown up in other reports, noise complaints, a trespassing incident involving a retired judge's summer cabin, even an alleged wellness retreat that had resulted in 14 guests getting food poisoning from unrefrigerated egg salad. Gibson leaned across the desk. "If you've got documentation, we've got a case." And oh, did I have documentation? Thanks to my security cameras, I had footage of Karen entering my property. Footage of her adjusting the pillows, directing the photographer, even rehearsing what she called the bridal welcome monologue. My hidden wildlife cam even caught her one night on the dock, standing in my bathrobe, sipping rose, and telling her phone's camera, "This lake is my spiritual legacy." I submitted it all. In the weeks that followed, the HOA scrambled. News of Karen's downfall had spread like wildfire. The local paper ran a story titled "From President to Perpetrator, the HOA Queen's Fall from Grace." Her mugshot, lipstick smudged, expression somewhere between rage and denial, made the front page. In the comments? Brutal. She once fined me for using the wrong bird seed. She stole my Christmas lights and claimed it violated winter harmony. Can't wait for her to cure at a jail cell. And as for me? Well, I wasn't done. I filed a civil suit. Property damage. Fraud. Emotional distress. The whole legal enchilada. Angie crafted it like a piece of art, factual, fierce, and airtight. We filed for damages plus legal fees. But I told her something else too. I want an apology. Angie laughed. You know she'll never write one. Oh, she will, I said. Even if it's on a courtroom napkin. 2 months later, we went to court. Karen showed up with a public defender, eyes sunken, blazer wrinkled. No clipboard. No pearls. No entourage. She didn't look like a queen anymore. She looked like what she was, someone whose house of lies had collapsed under the weight of her own ego. She tried to claim ignorance. That she believed she had verbal consent. That she thought I was a community caretaker. The judge wasn't having it. The forged documents. The key logs. The security footage. The live listing profiles. The judge leaned over the bench and said, "Ms. Whitmore, you didn't just overstep boundaries. You invaded, manipulated, and monetized someone else's life." She was fined. Barred from any HOA board for life. Ordered to pay restitution. And yes, write a formal apology. It was delivered by mail 3 weeks later. Typed. Single-spaced. Cold. To Mr. Lake, since you seem to care so much about titles. I regret that my actions were interpreted as unlawful. I believed I was contributing to the community, but apparently my efforts were misunderstood. I apologize for any confusion or distress this caused. Sincerely, Karen Whitmore. Angie snorted when she read it. That's not an apology. That's a Yelp review of her own arrest. I framed it anyway. Hung it right above the front door of my cabin. Next to the carved initials of my grandfather. A reminder that no matter how entitled someone acts, truth has a way of coming home early. And speaking of coming home, my place has never felt more like mine. No more strange tire tracks. No staged yoga mats. No lavender candles with manifest abundance etched in gold. Just me, Bear, and the lake. The way it was always meant to be. Karen's old clipboard? I fished it out of the trash and stuck it in the fire pit last weekend. We roasted marshmallows over it. Bear approved.